just a little bit. Last week, Mike, well, this was official this week, Mike called myself and Steve Capson and Mike Davis went down to meet with our legislatures who are on the MIDA control board. Adams and what's the other guy's name? Stevenson. And had a good discussion with them. We needed to get some clarification on where Van and Blue Ledge status was with MIDA. I think we got some direction there. Steve and Mike, refer to you two. Steve, you want to start the discussion, and then Mike and Mike, or wherever.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, I'll get the Blue Ledge to the very last piece of that. Let me first talk about, kind of bring up everybody up to date as far as what we know. The Air Force has recently come out toward the properties, toward the area, and they're pretty firm right now that they want to be on Mayflower South. That's where they ultimately like to be. They'd like ski in, ski out. They're very firm on being able to have ski in, ski out property, and they really like the Mayflower South property. They also understand the challenges with the current owners of Mayflower properties. So leading into that, we have received confirmation, or I guess from them, that they are intent on selling the property. So Mayflower South is not and will not do anything to encumber the property in any way, shape, or form, because they are in the process of selling the property. So they will not partnership, they will not do anything.
Bob, if you hear anything contradictory, we have the email from Harmon that if this doesn't jive with your correspondence with him, just raise your hand.
Okay.
Practice, thank you.
So they've indicated they'll not do anything to encumber the property because they want to sell it. They don't want to do anything that might impede a sale. So they won't partnership. They won't parcel any pieces off. They won't do anything currently with the property. They're leaving that up to the subsequent owner, whoever buys it, to work out a deal, say with the Air Force or whomever. So that's the first 2 points. The third point I want to make is that we have, through our attorneys and also the senators in our meeting, confirmed that according to the statutes, and I could probably cite the statute here, but we cannot grant increment until there is a military site, until there is a military property involved, and that's per the MIDA statutes. And so, the Air Force wants to be on Mayflower South, and Mayflower wants to sell their property, and we can't proceed until the Air Force gets a site. And we can't give any increment in that regards. In regards to MIDA and the Blue Ledge, and where Blue Ledge and us are, as we said in the meeting last week, but to reiterate, there are, and again I'm going to trying to be very clear on this, there is what's called the MIDA project area, which is the whole area. Within the MIDA project area, there is a small piece of land, 2 pieces of land, that are in what's called the MIDA control area. That is Mr. Haymeyer's piece, known as the Blue Ledge piece, and also whatever future site where the military hotel will go. Those are the only 2 pieces of property. It's 40 acres plus whatever is going to be the hotel will sit on. Those are the pieces of property that are in the MIDA control area. The rest of it is in the county control area. And so that kind of establishes the fact that we are the governing body for agreements with them. We are the governing body for the county control area. The MIDA board is the governing body for the Blue Ledge property and also the future site of the military hotel. So we're really not the governing body for Mr. Haymeyer's site, so make that very clear with you. We are proceeding to complete our zoning up there, the R-SPA zone, so we're working on that, engaging them right away to get that done, and that's where we stand as far as the area. Any further, did I miss anything?
Right. And the opinion that Steve gives is one that came from Senator Stevenson, also from Tom Bennett, who represented the county in the contract negotiations with mine. We've spoken with Scott, and I think Scott concurs with that. So I think we're pretty solid in that position. Mike, anything to add to that?
I don't think so. Yeah, the only thing is, when I mentioned the other meeting we're going to have, once it's arranged, which would end up having a couple more people, and I think it'll just further clarify where we are, but there are some other points to.
Yeah, I could
when we had the meeting, we was missing a couple of folks. They was tied up, so and through my initiated another meeting with the two senators. That would also include Dave Williamson from the Air Force, Stan Castleton, who has a contract with the Air Force, Paul Morris from MIDA, and then the others that was at the table.
Not sure it changes anything or will change, but at least from what you're taking.
But so we can have better communication
So that everybody
understands that.
I will add one thing. I did speak with Paul Morris today. He concurred with what Councilman Capson just said, and that in the county control area, until there is a site, we cannot issue it. Therefore, that doesn't mean that properties within that area can't develop. It means if they develop, they develop at that point.
So just to be clear, right now, there's the 40 acres that Van has that is controlled by MIDA. The remainder of the 2,200 acres, whatever it is, at this time is controlled by the county. So there will be no confusion on that. Mike, anything else you need to add? Van,
Thank you for that. It's very clear. Thank you very much.
Okay, appreciate that. And Van has a contract. I think that's available with the military. I mean, and I think it's pretty self-explanatory.
With MIDA, not with military.
I mean, with MIDA, yeah, excuse me, with MIDA. It's pretty self-explanatory where the payments would go and what they can and what they cannot be used for. Municipal funds will then be used to contract back with the county or the Special Service District for the services. So that, I think it's as we always understood it. I think it is a little bit confusing for some people, so we just wanted to clear that up. Thanks, man.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Would it be appropriate now if I just clarified a couple items from last week's meeting?
Sure, go ahead.
Would that be okay?
Yep.
I did some rough numbers calculation presentation on percentages of how the increment would go. My discussion was to the developers. That was the purpose of the meeting, the intent of the meeting, to talk with the developers. There were public in attendance, and we were glad they were there. That was a public meeting, but they might not have understood exactly what the conversation was about. The conversation was about total taxable value. The figure was used of $16 billion, which is total taxable value. That's over 25 years. So you divide that by 25 years, it's $650 million per year. What we were saying in that presentation is that the likelihood from day 1 through day 25 years of having an average of $650 million of taxable value in that area to fund $77 million worth of infrastructure is very remote. It's not the county's responsibility to build the infrastructure, it is the developer's responsibility to build it. The county's not going to pay for it. And the ability to be reimbursed is solely up to the developer, because it's money they generate that potentially reimburses them. So the county's influence in that is strictly what we've already done. By committing to a project area, each developer has, with the county, has to determine whether they'll be included in the area. They're not automatically included. And then, depending on what they build, or the value, the increment value they put to the property will determine what's there. We think it's highly unlikely that they'll be able to generate enough to pay for all of the wish list of every developer. And that was the point of the meeting. It was at the developers, so that they understood that they will have to build this infrastructure, but it may not be reimbursed. So that's the extent of it. I just wanted that clarified. There's been a lot of questions about it.
Okay, and then that leads us into number 8 on the agenda. We've been contacted by a few other property owners about the possibility of leaving the county control area and being included in the MIDA control area, and what that process would be, or how it would be received by the county. We just wanted to have that discussion now, and I think as Mike or Steve explained, it's probably not possible until we have a military site, because there's nothing available. What do you two want to elaborate on that?
Well, yeah, I think per agreement, we ironed out agreements with them as to who was in charge of what, and I think we would have to go back to those agreements and in their entirety almost. And so in my opinion, we aren't going to have the agreements that we wanted, we needed to have to benefit the citizens of Wasatch County. And I think that we have nailed down what areas we're in control of, and we were comfortable with that from the beginning. So I'm not interested in going back personally, going back and renegotiating those contracts with MIDA.
I put this on for discussion and consideration so the council can have a conversation about that, a discussion about, excuse me, to see where each of you stood on that. I don't think we can go anywhere until we got the military contract in place. But that's up for discussion and consideration. If we want to take a vote on that, however we want to do it, it's both discussion and consideration. Mike, your feelings on that?
I don't know if I've got enough. I mean, I realized what we talked about, and we kind of had a projection of what was going to happen up there when we did it. But to conclude based on what might happen with the hotel site and what might change otherwise, that nobody could make changes in there. I don't know if I'm ready to make that statement at this point. There might be some reason why we do. Until this develops a little bit more. I mean, certainly as it sits today, maybe we're okay, but I'm not going to support a decision that we won't change later, if that's what you're asking.
I guess what I'm asking is a position, until we get a military site, I don't think that we can consider any of the properties.
Making adjustments before military. Yeah, that's probably safe.
I think that, I'm not saying we just avoid.
Because at some point in time, if somebody wants to ask, they at least have the right to ask, and we would consider it. But anyway, okay, finish the discussion. Let's see where the motion goes.
Steve, where you are.
Well, again, I think we would have to go back to the contract. There's the contracts between us and MIDA, the agreements specifically state what parcels we are in control of and what parcels they are in control of, and that was for our comfort, protection of the citizens we represent. I do not feel like I would be inclined to turn property from the county controller to the MIDA controller.
I think I'd have to know the full implications if we did allow them to go over the other costs, which would be with the citizens, how that would affect them. It would seem like we probably ought to hold back until that hotel site is finalized, so we know what things we're doing.
I think we ought to keep as much control of the county through our control area as possible. I hesitate to turn control over to the MIDA group because it's taken it out of just putting it in an independent entity's hands. So I just assume stay with what we got.
I think it's important to define control. Control means that area within the project MIDA project area is subject to our ordinances and building codes and road standards and those things, correct? That's the, when you say control, that's what you're talking about. The only pieces that don't.
There's a little more than that, but that is.
But when you say control, it's the county rules that are already in place, if that's what you want. The MIDA has may have different set of rules. That may be why people want in or out or whatever else, right?
Well, and it's how the increment is spent and what the increment is spent on.
And I think I understand, I'm sure I understand that. I just want to make sure it's clear what control means. Control means that it's the county's rules versus MIDA's rules, because they'll be different. And the only parcels, and those are all in contracts, and I don't think I'm interested, as Steve said, in putting any more in that under MIDA's rules or control it than we absolutely have to at this point.
I feel the same.
So should we just wait maybe till we have an application in front of us? I mean, I don't know if we need a formal vote, but until we get a formal application to be removed, should we just act at that time on that? If we get one or more, and we'll just act on it then? Okay.
Jay, one other thing too, I think MIDA said this several times, they only had 3 employees. They weren't really looking or have the staff to deal with too much more than we talked. That was part of our original, so.
And I think Rick Williams the first of March.
Mr. Chairman, on that vein too, I mean, we would have to, and I don't want to engage the attorney until that time either, because I think we would have to engage Tom again to discuss what the ramifications are and how we would have to renegotiate the agreements we already have in place. Because that's all for agreements. We would have to redo our agreements, and I really don't want to, let's wait for that to come in. If it comes in, the request, because at that time, then we're going to have to get with the attorney on how it was even possible.
Why is that position? Sounds like that's a position. Okay, good. Number 9,